Welcome back. Today's story filled with drama and unexpected turns. Hit like, subscribe, and let's jump in.
3 years ago, my world nearly fell apart. It was a warm July evening, and while life as I knew it crumbled that night, I'm only now starting to process the aftermath. Let me explain. I'm David Larson, 39 years old, 6 feet 2 inches and 180 pounds. I have 2 daughters, Sophie, 15, and Lila, 14. 5 years ago, I was married to my beautiful wife, Hannah, who I affectionately called my Pixie. We met in high school when she was 4'11" and only grew to 5'0" by the time we married in college. People joked, calling us Big E and Tiny J, but I adored her completely and still do. After our first child, Clara, was born, I suggested Hannah get a pixie tattoo so she'd always be my pixie. She agreed, and we chose a design similar to a fairy, but with a more elegant look and a flowing blue gown. The pixie had fiery red hair, just like my wife. Clara took after Hannah, petite and spirited, but incredibly talented. She mastered multiple instruments, becoming first-chair clarinet at 12 and switching to violin at 14, where she excelled again. Sophie and Lila, on the other hand, inherited my family's height and athleticism, focusing more on sports than music. The night my world was shattered was right after a concert at Clara's middle school. Hannah had waited for Clara while Sophie, Lila, and I went to get the car. I was just pulling up into the drop-off circle when I heard sirens. I looked around, got out of my car, and stood watching as a mid-70s Mustang came roaring down the street, being chased by at least 6 police cars, sirens blaring, lights flashing, and tires screeching. Somehow, the Mustang driver swerved to avoid a person in the road and suddenly launched into the air, skidding across the school grounds. The car hit the concrete sidewalk, flipped, and continued to flip sideways all the way up to the steps leading up to the school. I had seen my little Pixie and Clara coming down the steps just before this happened. I screamed Hannah's name as I rushed forward. I work as an accountant for a large state agency, and part of my job is being a first responder for my department. I've had all the EMT training so I can assist until emergency responders arrive. I ran back to the car, grabbed my bag, and told the girls to sit tight. I would be back as soon as I could. I immediately started towards the people I could see lying in pain on the ground. Most of the injuries were bruises and scrapes, but as I got closer to the steps, I found broken bones, massive bleeding, and deep gashes. I did my best until the police cordoned off the area. A young cop tried to get me to move back, but I told him I was an EMT and insisted on helping. I was still scanning the area for Hannah or Clara when I spotted a leg with rivulets of blood running down. The ankle was exposed, and I saw the tattoo. My vision went black, and I collapsed. An EMT on the scene said I crumpled to the ground, and they dragged me off to the side. I guess I was out for a few minutes before I woke up screaming, "No, no," then just cried and beat my hands against the ground. My inner self eventually rose to the surface, and I got up, mumbling, "Why me?" I tried to rush to my love's side, but I was restrained by a couple of police officers. One of my fellow EMTs, Ethan, who was also a close friend, came over and slapped my face. "David, get a hold of yourself," he said. "We've seen this all before." But I replied, "Hannah and Clara are under that car. I can see Hannah's pixie tattoo." Ethan pulled me to him and let me cry. Ethan had a tough past himself. He had been through a bitter divorce and lost custody of his daughter. His ex-wife, Lauren, had accused him of abuse, but no charges were ever filed. It was an ugly, drawn-out fight. Even though I supported Ethan through his ordeal, I never imagined that I would end up in my own devastating situation. Afterward, Ethan led me to our car, where I had to break the news to Sophie and Lila that their mother and sister were gone. They were devastated, and we sat there crying for what seemed like hours. The police later told us the teenage driver of the Mustang was found dead at the scene. His seatbelt strangled him when the car flipped. He was a local delinquent, and his family had no insurance, so justice was never truly served. My life went on after a fashion. I fell into a deep depression, barely functioning, going to work, coming home to fix meals for the girls, then crying myself to sleep when I could manage to sleep at all. Ethan forced me to see a doctor, who prescribed medication to help take the edge off, but I was still a shell of myself. 2 years after that horrific night, Ethan took me by the arms and shook me. "David," he said, "you need to start living again. Sophie and Lila need their dad. Hannah would want you to be strong for them. Something inside me snapped. I realized I was slowly losing my daughters too, as they were slipping into depression. That first year after the accident, we would often cuddle up and cry ourselves to sleep on the couch. But now it was time for a change. Summer had just begun, so I decided to take 2 weeks off work for a much-needed break. My boss, Mark, was understanding and told me to take the time I needed. That evening, I asked the girls where they wanted to go on vacation, and the unanimous answer was Universal Studios. I called Ethan, who had bought a car dealership and had the freedom to leave anytime. I suggested we take the girls to Universal Studios together. He agreed, and within a few hours, everything was set. We flew out of Denver International Airport and arrived in Florida a few hours later. Our vacation rental was a suite with multiple bedrooms, a sitting room, and a kitchen. It was the perfect setup, close enough to Universal Studios for easy access but far enough away for some peace. The trip was going well until a TSA incident at the airport had left Sophie injured and embarrassed when a security agent's harsh pat-down caused her first period to start unexpectedly. I filed a complaint with the authorities, who seemed genuinely concerned, and I started documenting everything as evidence. With Ethan's help, we contacted lawyers to pursue a case against the TSA agent and Homeland Security. I hoped we could get some justice for Sophie. After settling into our vacation rental, I called Mark and informed him of my intention to leave the state agency for good. Ethan had offered me a job managing the accounting and investment side of his new firm. The timing was perfect, I needed a change, and the girls deserved a fresh start. During the trip, a chance encounter with a flight attendant named Nicole opened a new chapter in my life. She had helped Sophie during the incident and had an undeniable warmth about her that reminded me of Hannah. Over time, I grew closer to Nicole, and when the girls suggested I invite her to our home back in Arizona, I decided to give it a chance. Nicole turned out to be more than just a comforting presence, she had a depth and kindness that made me fall in love again. It wasn't long before I proposed, and she accepted, bringing hope and joy back into our lives. Looking back, I realize I had been given a second chance at happiness. The girls needed a mother, and I needed a partner to share my life with. Though Hannah and Clara will always hold a special place in my heart, Nicole is helping us build new memories. Sometimes, the right person comes along when you least expect it, and I will forever be grateful for the second chance at love. Nicole and I returned from our trip with the girls feeling renewed, and we set about building our lives together. I took on the new role at Ethan's investment firm, which came with a steep learning curve, but it felt good to be challenged again. The firm had a solid foundation thanks to Ethan's careful management, but there was plenty of work to do as we expanded our client base. I found myself throwing my energy into the business, rediscovering the drive I'd lost years ago. Nicole quickly settled into our lives in Arizona. The girls adored her and began looking to her for guidance on things they didn't want to bother their dad with. Her gentle approach made it easy for them to confide in her, and soon enough, she was taking them shopping, helping with homework, and listening to their teenage woes. It was a relief to see them smile more often and hear laughter echo through the house again. It wasn't long before Nicole suggested that we get the house renovated. "It's time to make this place our own," she said, hinting at the need for change without erasing the memories of Hannah and Clara. We decided on a few updates: new paint in the bedrooms, redoing the kitchen, and creating a small garden in the backyard where we could relax on weekends. It was just what we needed to transform the space from a reminder of loss into a symbol of new beginnings. Amid all these changes, Sophie and Lila started to thrive. Sophie, who had once struggled to express herself after the accident, began writing short stories and even submitted one to the school's literary magazine. When it got published, she was ecstatic, and we all celebrated her achievement at her favorite restaurant. Lila, meanwhile, joined the volleyball team and found a love for the sport that gave her a new circle of friends and a healthy outlet for her energy. I wasn't the only one busy with the firm. Ethan had his hands full managing the car dealership and supporting me in the office. Yet, he found time for his own happiness. He had begun dating a woman named Anna, a flight attendant who had been Nicole's roommate back in Florida. She had the same quick wit and charm that made it easy for her to fit into our group. When Anna came to visit, it felt as if she'd always been a part of the family. The connection between Nicole and me grew stronger every day. The love we shared felt like a balm, healing the wounds of the past. I remember one evening, after we had finished planting a new flower bed in the backyard, she turned to me with a smile and said, "I think we should talk about a wedding date." The question wasn't unexpected, but hearing it still made my heart skip. "I've been thinking about it, too," I replied, and just like that, we began planning our future. We set the date for early autumn, almost exactly 4 years since that tragic night. It was important for us to have a celebration of life and love that didn't overlap with the painful memories. We chose a small, intimate ceremony in a botanical garden not far from our home. The girls wanted to be involved in every detail, from picking the flowers to choosing the music. Sophie even wrote a poem that she planned to read during the ceremony, while Lila helped Nicole choose her wedding dress. The day finally arrived, and as I stood at the altar, waiting for Nicole, I felt a wave of emotions: love, joy, gratitude, and even a touch of sadness. I knew Hannah and Clara were with me in spirit, and I could almost feel their blessing. When Nicole walked down the aisle in a simple white gown with a light pink ribbon at her waist, I was overwhelmed by how beautiful she looked. Her red hair shone like fire under the sunlight, and her green eyes sparkled with happiness. The ceremony was everything we had hoped for: simple, heartfelt, and surrounded by the people we loved most. Sophie read her poem with a steady voice, and Lila gave a toast at the reception that made everyone laugh and tear up at the same time. When Nicole and I had our first dance as husband and wife, I felt a sense of peace that I hadn't experienced in years. In the months following our wedding, life continued to find its rhythm. Nicole started teaching part-time at a local school, sharing her passion for literature with young minds. The girls were thriving. Sophie was working on her first novella, while Lila made the varsity volleyball team. The renovations on the house were complete, and our garden flourished, with new flowers blooming each season. About a year after we got married, Nicole and I welcomed our first child together, a boy named Liam. His arrival brought new joy to our family, and Sophie and Lila were over the moon to have a baby brother. They took turns helping out, eager to take on the role of big sisters. The house that had once been so full of grief was now filled with the sounds of children playing and laughter. As I look back, I realized that the journey from loss to love was not an easy one, but it was one that taught me the value of resilience and the power of hope. Hannah and Clara would always be a part of our story, but Nicole, Sophie, Lila, and Liam were the future. Together, we had built a life that honored the past while embracing new beginnings, and for that, I was profoundly grateful. Life moved forward with a new sense of completeness, though it wasn't without its challenges. Balancing a blended family brought unique dynamics to our household, and adjusting to life with a newborn added a layer of beautiful chaos. Liam was a bundle of energy, always curious and constantly reaching for anything within his grasp. He kept Nicole and me on our toes, but we cherished every sleepless night and early morning. Sophie and Lila took to being big sisters with surprising ease. Sophie, with her gentle and nurturing spirit, was often the one who could calm Liam down during his fussy moments. She'd sit by his crib, telling him stories or playing lullabies on her guitar, the same one Hannah had once played. It was a bittersweet sight, but also a comforting reminder of the ways in which life keeps moving forward. Lila, meanwhile, loved to play the role of the fun older sister, always making Liam laugh with silly faces or teaching him how to high-five. She thrived in her role as the protective sibling, and it wasn't uncommon to see her pushing him in a stroller during our walks in the neighborhood or chasing after him when he toddled off to explore. It was as if Liam brought out a new depth in each of us, bonding us even closer as a family. The years passed quickly, and before we knew it, Liam was old enough to start preschool. Sophie was nearing the end of high school, with plans to study creative writing at a local university, while Lila had her eyes set on earning a sports scholarship to play volleyball in college. Watching them grow up was bittersweet. Time seemed to pass in the blink of an eye. I felt proud and sad at the same time, knowing they were stepping into their own lives but grateful for the strong foundation we had built together. As the girls became more independent, Nicole and I found ourselves with more time to focus on our relationship. We began to travel more, taking the occasional weekend trip to the mountains or a spontaneous visit to the coast. One summer, we took the entire family to a cabin in Blue Ridge Mountains. It was a much-needed escape from our busy lives, and for a week, we disconnected from work, school, and the pressures of daily life. We hiked, fished, and built bonfires on the beach. One night, as we sat by the fire with the kids, Nicole leaned over and whispered, "I think we should try for one more." The suggestion took me by surprise, but I could see the longing in her eyes. We were already blessed with 3 wonderful children, and I hadn't considered expanding our family further. But as I watched the firelight dance in Nicole's gaze and felt the warmth of Liam's small hand in mine, the thought of another baby didn't seem overwhelming. It felt like the natural next step. A few months later, we were overjoyed to find out that Nicole was pregnant. The pregnancy brought a different set of emotions compared to when we were expecting Liam. Now, with our older children so much more mature and aware, it felt like a journey we were all taking together. Sophie and Lila attended ultrasounds, helped paint the nursery, and even debated baby names with us. Liam, on the other hand, was mostly excited about becoming a big brother and didn't grasp the full extent of what was coming, but he would soon learn. Nicole gave birth to our daughter, Anna, in late fall. She arrived with a full head of dark hair, just like mine, and bright blue eyes. Holding Anna for the first time was a profound moment for me. It felt like a bridge between the past and the present, like life had come full circle. I thought about Hannah and Clara again, and I could almost feel their presence, as though they were watching over us. Life with 4 kids wasn't easy, but it was filled with love, laughter, and a sense of fulfillment I hadn't known was possible after so much loss. Nicole's love and strength were the anchors that kept our family steady, and I made it a point to cherish the little moments, like early morning cuddles with Anna, watching Sophie and Lila's volleyball games, or reading bedtime stories to Liam. As the years went by, our family continued to grow in more ways than one. Ethan and Anna had gotten married, and they welcomed a baby boy named Max not long after Anna was born. It was wonderful to see Ethan finally find the happiness he deserved. We often joked about how our family vacations now required more planning and larger accommodations with all the kids running around. Professionally, the firm had thrived since I took over the accounting side, while Ethan focused on investments. We expanded our services, and with the steady growth came a decision to open a second office. The work was challenging but rewarding, and I felt like I was not just rebuilding my life but creating something meaningful that my kids could be proud of. As Anna and Liam grew older, the girls moved out for college, each pursuing their dreams with determination. Sophie's writing career began to take off, with her first novel published by the time she was 23, while Lila went on to play collegiate volleyball, earning a degree in physical therapy. It was strange to see the house gradually become quieter without the girls around, but we were immensely proud of the women they were becoming. One evening, after Nicole and I had tucked Anna and Liam into bed, we sat together on the back porch, watching the sunset. "Can you believe how far we've come?" I said, taking her hand. Nicole smiled, resting her head on my shoulder. "It's amazing, isn't it? The way life surprises you, even when you think you've seen it all." In that moment, I realized that our journey had been one of continual rebuilding. We had faced so much loss, yet we emerged stronger, having crafted a life filled with new memories and experiences. There were still moments when the past weighed heavily on my heart, but they no longer consumed me. Instead, they reminded me to cherish the present and hold close the love that we had found again. I squeezed Nicole's hand, and we sat in silence, content to let the last light of the day fade away, knowing that no matter what came next, we had already built something extraordinary, a family that was woven together not just by blood, but by love, resilience, and the willingness to begin again. As time marched on, our lives continued to evolve, always moving forward but never forgetting the past. Sophie and Lila flourished in their chosen paths, and before long, they both graduated from college. Sophie, now a published author with a growing following, moved to New York City to pursue her writing full-time. Lila, after completing her degree in physical therapy, took a job at a prestigious sports medicine clinic in Austin. Though the girls were far away, they remained deeply connected to the family. We talked often, and they returned home whenever they could, always bringing new stories and experiences to share. Back at home, Anna and Liam were growing up quickly. Anna, with her wild imagination and artistic flair, loved to paint and draw. Her room was filled with sketches and paintings, some taped to the walls and others carefully framed. She reminded me so much of Hannah in her love for creativity, and it was heartwarming to see that spark continue in our youngest. Liam, on the other hand, had developed a passion for sports, much like his older sister Lila. He played soccer and baseball, always full of energy and eager to learn. Watching him on the field, I could see glimpses of the determination and drive that had always been a part of my family. Nicole and I continued to nurture our relationship, making time for date nights and even the occasional weekend getaway. We were partners in every sense of the word, and our shared experiences had strengthened our bond. Every challenge we faced together, and it felt like nothing could shake the foundation we had built. Yet, as life tends to do, it had one more surprise in store for us. Shortly after Anna turned 10 and Liam was 12, Nicole began experiencing some unusual symptoms: fatigue, nausea, and a general sense of unease. At first, we attributed it to the stresses of raising a busy family and the demands of her part-time teaching job. However, when the symptoms persisted, we decided it was time for her to see a doctor. We were both shocked when the results came back. Nicole was pregnant. The news came as a complete surprise, especially since we hadn't planned on expanding our family any further. But as the shock wore off, excitement quickly took its place. We were older now, more experienced as parents, and we knew this would be a new kind of adventure. The kids were thrilled at the idea of a new baby, and it seemed like the whole family rallied around Nicole to make sure she had all the support she needed. As the months passed, Nicole's pregnancy went smoothly, and we prepared for the arrival of our unexpected blessing. This time, the girls were fully grown and involved in the process from a distance, sending baby clothes and toys, and even flying in to help with preparations as the due date approached. Lila visited from Austin and painted a beautiful mural on the nursery wall, depicting a whimsical forest filled with animals and soft colors. Sophie arrived just a few weeks before Nicole was due, eager to help in any way she could. Then, on a warm spring morning, Nicole gave birth to a healthy baby boy. We named him Noah, and from the moment he arrived, he brought a fresh sense of joy to our lives. It felt as if the circle of our family had come around once more, adding a new chapter to our story. Holding Noah in my arms, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude for the path my life had taken, full of unexpected twists, but always leading me back to love. Having a baby in the house again at our age was both exhausting and invigorating. It was as if we were experiencing parenthood all over again, but this time with a wisdom and patience we didn't have when we were younger. Anna and Liam adored their new little brother, often taking turns feeding him or pushing the stroller during our family walks. Anna, in particular, developed a strong bond with Noah, delighting in every smile and babble as she helped us care for him. The addition of Noah also brought our extended family even closer. Ethan and Anna, now parents of 2, often visited for playdates, and it wasn't long before the cousins were thick as thieves, running around together and causing all kinds of joyful chaos. Our gatherings became more frequent and lively, with kids of all ages filling the house. It reminded me of my own childhood, surrounded by a big family, and I couldn't have asked for a better way for my children to grow up. As the years passed, Nicole and I found ourselves reflecting on our journey with a sense of awe. We had come so far from those dark days of loss, and while we would always carry the memory of Hannah and Clara with us, we had managed to build a life full of hope, happiness, and love. It wasn't a life without scars, but the scars told a story of resilience and the strength of a family that refused to be broken. Noah's arrival also brought about a shift in our priorities. I decided to gradually scale back my role at the firm, spending more time at home to enjoy these precious years with our young children. Nicole continued to teach part-time, finding fulfillment in shaping young minds while still being present for our growing family. We found a new rhythm, one that allowed us to savor the small moments, reading bedtime stories to Noah, watching Liam score goals at his soccer games, and admiring Anna's latest artwork. Before long, the time came for Sophie and Lila to begin families of their own. Sophie met someone special in New York, a fellow writer, and they were soon married in a small ceremony in Golden Gate Park. Lila followed a couple of years later, marrying a colleague from the sports clinic, and they decided to settle down in Austin, not far from where she had built her career. Watching my daughters build their own lives and families was both heartwarming and humbling. It was a reminder that no matter how much time passes, a parent's love and pride for their children only grow stronger. Looking back on it all, I realized that the journey was never about reaching a destination but about learning to navigate the winding roads of life with an open heart. We had faced loss and found love again. We built a family that was a beautiful blend of past and present, with each new chapter bringing its own unique joys. Our home, once a place that carried the weight of grief, had become a sanctuary filled with life, laughter, and endless possibilities. As Nicole and I grew older, we knew that there would always be new challenges to face and new memories to make. But as long as we faced them together, surrounded by the love of our children and grandchildren, we were ready for whatever came next. Life had given us a second chance, and we had made the most of it. And in the end, that was all we could ever ask for. As the years continued to unfold, our family's journey remained a blend of everyday moments and extraordinary milestones. Noah was now in elementary school, a lively boy full of curiosity and charm. His wide-eyed wonder at the world reminded me of the days when Sophie and Lila were his age. He had a natural knack for storytelling, often making up elaborate tales about knights, dragons, and faraway lands. Anna, now in high school, was coming into her own as a talented young artist. Her paintings had evolved from childhood sketches to intricate works of art that were beginning to attract attention. She even won a few local art competitions, her pieces earning praise for their vibrant colors and emotional depth. Liam had entered middle school and was fully immersed in sports, particularly soccer and basketball. He was one of those kids who seemed to excel at everything he tried, but what I admired most was his determination. He would spend hours practicing in the backyard, never discouraged by a missed shot or a lost game. It was clear that he had big dreams, and Nicole and I did everything we could to support him, whether that meant driving him to early morning practices or cheering him on from the sidelines during weekend tournaments. With the older kids growing up and becoming more independent, Nicole and I found ourselves at a point where we could finally take a step back and reflect on the life we had built together. We would often sit on the back porch after dinner, sharing a glass of wine and talking about the past, the present, and what might come next. It was in those quiet moments that I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for everything we had endured and achieved. Our family had come through so much, yet here we were, still standing strong. Around this time, my decision to scale back my work at the firm became more concrete. I began transitioning some of my responsibilities to younger partners, training them and ensuring a smooth handover. It was difficult at first to let go of a career I had spent so many years building, but I knew I had made the right choice. The pull to be more present at home was stronger than ever, and I didn't want to miss out on these precious years with our younger children. The firm continued to thrive, and I stayed on as a consultant, which allowed me to remain involved without the day-to-day pressures. With more time on our hands, Nicole and I took up some hobbies we'd always wanted to try. I started woodworking, finding peace in the rhythm of shaping and crafting things with my hands. There was something meditative about working with wood, and I even began making small pieces of furniture for the house. Nicole, on the other hand, had always loved gardening, and now she expanded our backyard garden into a beautiful sanctuary filled with blooming flowers, a small pond, and even a vegetable patch. The garden became our retreat, a place where we could escape the bustle of everyday life and simply enjoy the serenity of nature. Our growing brood of grandchildren was another source of immense joy. Sophie had given birth to a baby girl named Nora, and a year later, Lila welcomed a son named Liam. Watching Sophie and Lila become mothers was a surreal experience. It was a reminder of how quickly time passed, but also how wonderfully it continued to unfold. Family gatherings became more lively and chaotic than ever, with toddlers running around, laughter echoing through the house, and the kind of joyful noise that made our home feel more alive than it had in years. At one of these gatherings, during a warm summer evening when the kids were playing outside and the adults were enjoying the breeze on the porch, Nicole turned to me with a soft smile. "David," she said, "I've been thinking about something for a while now. We should take a trip, just the two of us. A real adventure." The idea of traveling had been in the back of our minds for a while, but we had never taken the plunge. There had always been something that needed our attention: kids, work, house renovations. But now, with the firm in good hands, the older kids settled, and Noah and Anna being old enough for us to leave them in Ethan and Anna's care for a little while, it felt like the right time. After some planning, we decided on a trip to Europe. It was a place we had always dreamed of visiting, but life had never allowed us the opportunity. We started our journey in Italy, exploring the picturesque streets of Rome and the breathtaking beauty of the Amalfi Coast. Walking hand in hand through ancient ruins and savoring the local cuisine felt like a second honeymoon. From there, we traveled to France, where we marveled at the art in the Louvre, wandered the romantic streets of Paris, and even took a detour to the peaceful countryside. It was everything we had hoped for and more, a chance to rediscover each other outside the context of parenthood and everyday responsibilities. The trip brought us closer than ever, and we returned home feeling rejuvenated, with a newfound appreciation for the life we had built. We brought back small souvenirs for the kids, as well as countless stories about the places we had seen and the people we had met. Anna was particularly captivated by our stories of the art in Italy and France, and she began planning a future trip of her own to study art in Europe. Liam, meanwhile, was more interested in the stories of old castles and ancient battles, which fueled his already active imagination. As the years continued to pass, we saw more changes. Sophie's career as a writer soared, with several of her novels making it onto bestseller lists. Lila became a well-respected physical therapist specializing in sports medicine, even working with professional athletes. Watching our children achieve their dreams was a joy unlike any other. It felt like the culmination of all the years of love, hard work, and sacrifice. Noah and Anna grew up before our eyes. Noah, with his natural storytelling abilities, expressed an interest in theater and took part in school plays, while Anna continued to refine her artistic skills, eventually earning a scholarship to a prestigious art school. The house, which had once seemed so full and bustling, gradually quieted as each of the children moved on to their own lives. But Nicole and I were never alone. Our bond had only deepened over the years, and we found contentment in the simple pleasures, quiet mornings with coffee in the garden, long walks together, and spontaneous road trips. The joy of being grandparents was a wonderful chapter, one where we got to relive the magic of childhood through the eyes of Nora, Liam, and the other grandchildren that followed. One evening, as Nicole and I sat on our favorite bench in the backyard, with the sun setting over the horizon, I thought about how much had changed since that fateful night so many years ago. We had gone from a place of deep sorrow to a life full of love and fulfillment. We had found ways to honor the memories of Hannah and Clara while creating new ones with Nicole, our children, and grandchildren. As the sky faded from orange to deep blue, I looked over at Nicole, who was gazing peacefully at the garden she had so lovingly tended. "You know," I said, breaking the comfortable silence, "I never could have imagined back then that life would turn out this way." She turned to me, her green eyes reflecting the last light of day, and smiled. "That's the beauty of it, David. Life never stops surprising you. It always finds a way to show you that even after the darkest moments, there's still so much light to be found." And with that, we continued to sit together, hand in hand, content to watch the stars appear one by one, knowing that our story, full of love, loss, and renewal, would continue to unfold, as it always had, in ways we could never fully predict but would always be grateful for. As Nicole and I continued to navigate the years together, we found a rhythm that brought a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. Our days were a blend of quiet routines and cherished family moments, with each of our children and grandchildren adding new layers to our lives. Noah was entering high school, and his love for theater had blossomed into a full-fledged passion. He participated in every school production, from classic plays to musicals, and his natural talent on stage began to draw attention. Anna, now in her second year at art school, was thriving. Her paintings were getting exhibited in galleries, and she was even starting to sell some of her work. It was incredible to see how far she had come, and I couldn't have been prouder. As for our grandchildren, they were growing up quickly. Nora and Liam, now in elementary school, often came to stay with us for weekends. Those visits were full of laughter, art projects, and storytelling. Nora had inherited her mother's love for writing, filling notebooks with her own imaginative stories, while Liam showed an early interest in sports, especially soccer, just like his Aunt Lila. Our home, which had gradually quieted as our children grew up, now filled with joyful noise again whenever the grandkids came to visit. One summer, when Noah was 16 and Anna was home for a break from college, we decided to take a family trip to a cabin in the mountains, a tradition we had started when the kids were little and kept up whenever we could. This time, we invited Sophie and Lila's families to join us, making it a full family reunion. The cabin, nestled among tall pine trees with a sparkling lake nearby, was a place of many happy memories for us. It was where we had celebrated countless birthdays, anniversaries, and even a few holidays over the years. As soon as we arrived, the kids ran off to explore the familiar trails and the shore of the lake, while Nicole and I unpacked and settled into the cabin. It was a perfect week of bonding, with all of us under the same roof again, playing board games, roasting marshmallows over a fire, and sharing stories late into the night. There was a sense of coming full circle, of revisiting the past while creating new memories that would carry us into the future. One evening during the trip, Noah asked if he could perform a monologue he had been working on for an upcoming audition. We gathered around the fire pit, watching as he stepped forward, the flames casting a warm glow on his face. He delivered his lines with such conviction and emotion that there wasn't a dry eye among us by the time he finished. I saw so much of myself in him, his desire to express himself, to connect with others. But I also saw the growth and change that each generation brings. Noah had a confidence and a sense of purpose that took my breath away. Later that night, as I was sitting on the cabin's porch with a cup of tea, Sophie joined me. "Dad," she said, "I've been thinking about writing a book about our family. About everything we've been through, the loss, the love, and how we rebuilt our lives. What do you think?" The idea caught me off guard, but after a moment, I found myself nodding. "I think it's a beautiful idea, Sophie. If our story can help someone else who's struggling, then it's worth telling. We've come a long way, and if sharing that can give others hope, then I'm all for it." We talked for a while longer about the details, and I promised to help her with any memories or insights she needed. It was a profound moment, realizing that our family's story, so personal and full of both heartache and healing, could become a source of inspiration for others. Sophie's writing career had already touched many lives, and this book would be a new way to honor the journey we had taken together. After the trip, as summer gave way to autumn, life settled back into its familiar patterns. Noah continued to pursue theater with even more dedication, auditioning for roles in local productions outside of school. Anna's art was gaining more recognition, and she was preparing for her first solo exhibition. The grandkids were thriving, and Sophie and Lila were balancing their careers and family life with the kind of grace that made me proud. Then, one afternoon, Nicole and I received an unexpected letter. It was from the city, informing us that the park near where Hannah and Clara had passed away was being renovated and would be rededicated in their honor. A group of families affected by the tragedy had come together and petitioned the city council for a memorial garden to be established there. The letter invited us to participate in the dedication ceremony, and it stirred up a mix of emotions: grief, yes, but also a sense of closure that I hadn't realized I needed. Nicole and I discussed the letter with the kids, and we all agreed that attending the ceremony would be a way to honor Hannah and Clara while also acknowledging how far we had come. The ceremony took place on a crisp fall day. The park had been beautifully transformed, with a serene garden filled with blooming flowers and a small fountain. A plaque at the entrance bore the names of the victims and a dedication to the resilience of the families who had endured that dark time. Standing there, surrounded by family and old friends, I felt the weight of the years lift in a way I hadn't thought possible. The ceremony was simple but powerful, filled with stories of remembrance and speeches about moving forward. When it was my turn to speak, I talked about the journey of grief and healing, about finding love again with Nicole, and about how the memories of Hannah and Clara continued to shape our lives. I saw Sophie in the audience, wiping away tears, and I knew she was already thinking of how to weave this moment into the book she was writing. After the ceremony, we took a quiet walk through the garden. Nicole held my hand, and Noah, Anna, Sophie, Lila, and the grandkids followed close behind. We stopped at the fountain, where I said a silent prayer of gratitude, for the past, for the future, and for the present moment with my family all around me. That night, back at home, I sat down to write a letter of my own. It was to my future grandchildren, those who might one day come into our lives long after Nicole and I were gone. I wanted them to know the story of our family, not just the facts and the dates, but the love and strength that carried us through. I wrote about Hannah and Clara, about meeting Nicole, about raising their parents, and about how every chapter of life, no matter how difficult, could eventually give way to hope. As I sealed the letter and placed it in a box of keepsakes, I realized that our story would live on in many forms, through Sophie's book, through the memories we had shared, and through the legacy of love that had sustained us. It was a story not just of loss and recovery, but of growth, resilience, and the enduring power of family. And so, as the years continued to pass, Nicole and I embraced each new day with open hearts, knowing that life would keep surprising us. We cherished every moment, big or small, because we understood more deeply than ever that life is not about the destination, but about the journey and the people who walk it with you. It was a journey that had taken us from unimaginable grief to a place of profound happiness, with each step marked by love, resilience, and the ever-present hope for what tomorrow might bring. And in the end, that was the true measure of our family story, a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit, and a reminder that even in the face of loss, there is always room for new beginnings. Thanks for watching this touching story of love, loss, and new beginnings. It shows that even after tragedy, hope and healing are possible.